Okay. All right. Ready?
Sure.
Oh, hold on. We have 1 more minute. I already hit record, but
I'll have a minute of us sitting here, right?
smile. Smile pretty. All right. Let me go ahead and do this. Oops. Okay. I got to get it on Facebook. All right. Okay. We're almost live. Count you down. Oh, go live. Okay. Oh, no, almost. All right, we are now live on Facebook too. So I want to welcome everyone who is watching to our Friday vendor workshop series. Okay, so welcome to Latter-day Saints Home Educators Friday Vendor Workshop Series. LDSHE is an all-volunteer 5013 nonprofit with a mission to support, strengthen, and inspire Latter-day Saint families in home education. We've been putting on conferences that gather hundreds of LDS homeschoolers from across the country since 2004. Today's presentation is a vendor workshop to introduce you to one of our sponsors who helps make these conferences possible. If attending on the webinar, please mute your microphones and feel free to type any questions you have in the chat box, and we will try our best to address them. Now to introduce our vendor. This is Dale. Dale is a professional food scientist and a Lego brick enthusiast, which is how his company Beakers Bricks was born. In this webinar, Dale will describe how his Edible Knowledge brand of books are designed and give ideas on how they can be incorporated into your social studies. All right, Dale, turn it over to you.
Thank you for the nice introduction, even though I think I wrote some of that, right? Okay, well, I appreciate folks joining and looking to see what I have to offer that I think will help to make your science studies at home more enjoyable and fun, and for both the student and for anybody who might be needing to supervise if they're younger. So I'll go ahead and start in here. Okay, I'm at the bottom. There we go. Okay, so just a little bit more about myself. Jen already indicated I'm a professional food scientist and a Lego enthusiast, and that is how Beakers and Bricks was born. I'm the owner of Beakers and Bricks. I'm also an original Star Wars nut. I was 11 when Star Wars came out, and I think I saw it 7 times in the theater before it was out. And I've been a nut since then. I mess around a little bit with real estate, built some homes. I have my general contractor's license and have done a little bit in land development just recently, putting in a couple of small subdivisions. Married to my wife, Leanne, for 32 years, have 3 kids, a dog, and 3 cats. And I've lived all over the place: California, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Utah, Colorado, and North Carolina. North Carolina is the latest one. We've been here for about 10 years and we love it. Don't plan on leaving unless we have to. I'm fluent in Spanish and I'm working on Russian and Fijian. Fijian's where my youngest, who's 18 now, just received his mission call. He's supposed to go there in June, but we'll see. Things are all kind of up in the air at the moment. So that's just very briefly on me. Let me go ahead and make this bigger so you can see it. Okay. So food science. What is food science? It's the science of
Dale, I'm
cooking.
sorry.
Yes.
I'm not actually seeing your slides.
You're not.
No.
Hmm.
Maybe unshare and then try sharing again.
Stop share. Share screen. Let's see. Can you see that one?
Yes.
Okay. I will be going back and forth between a couple of different applications, so hopefully that doesn't mess things up. But just let me know if it does. Okay, so food science, it's the science of cooking. A lot of people don't know what food science is, that you can get a degree in it even. You can actually get a PhD in food science, and you can have a pretty rewarding career in it. It answers questions such as why do egg whites turn white? Why can pie crusts be nice and flaky sometimes but tough other times? Why can the same cut of beef have different textures? It can be super tough if you fry it in a pan, but fall apart tender if you stick it in the oven for a few hours, like pot roast. Some vegetables, like broccoli, can be bright green and change to olive green if you overcook them and they turn to mush. We know that happens, but what's going on? That explains it. Why is shortening called shortening? What's gluten? We hear an awful lot about that and gluten-free products these days. What's the big deal with that? What is freezer burn? What's happening when that happens to products that you store in the freezer, and is there something we can do about it? How about leavening of all different kinds? How do cakes rise? Um, how does bread rise? It's a different process for each of those. So food science explains all of these things. It pretty much explains what happens in the kitchen as you're preparing your food. So, and you may think that being a good food scientist makes you a good cook, but that isn't necessarily the case. You can just ask my wife. Um, I'm a good food scientist, and I am a good baker, but as far as actual meals, I'm not the best at that. A lot of people get confused between a chef and a food scientist. You can be a good chef and not be a good food scientist, and you can be a good food scientist but not a good chef. Uh, Chef involves culinary school, which is more the creative side as opposed to the science side. They get a little bit of that, whereas food science is the science side and a little bit of creativity. And just as an aside, the combination of those two is actually very good and highly sought after by food companies. I worked with one guy who was a chef for a five-star restaurant for quite a while. He ran the restaurant and got tired of the 24/7 lifestyle of a head chef. Went back, got a master's in food science, and he could pretty much write his own ticket because companies love the science knowledge and the creative side. So just real quickly, what do food scientists do? If you, and this is partly what attracted me to the discipline. If you enjoy science, but you don't want to be a microbiologist or a chemist or a physicist or any of the ists, so to speak, food science actually combines all of those. So you take classes in all of them, and it combines it into an applied discipline. So you use them all, but you don't get so deep into any of them that you, in my mind anyway, you go kind of crazy. So what do they do? I'll just quickly run through what I have done in my career. My first job was with Gorton Seafood, the big yellow fisherman guy, doing primarily product development. At the time, Gorton's was owned by General Mills, which is a big manufacturer you might recognize of cereals and things like that. So these are all products that I worked on. Parmesan fillets, I developed that. Lemon herb, that one also, and I reformulated all of those ones. Pretty much, if you think about what food scientists do, if you walk into a grocery store, pretty much everything that you see has food scientists behind it. Pretty much everything. And the same goes for in restaurants. They employ food scientists as well. As an aside, at Gorton's, we were the manufacturer for a lot of the filet of fish fillets for the McDonald's filet of fish sandwiches. And it's actually pretty good stuff. They use a very high quality fish for that. After that, I went to work for Kraft Foods, which owned Post at the time. and worked on ready-to-eat cereals. So I was on the development team for Oreo O's, and then I worked on Honey Bunches of Oats. At least the little there's a little fruit frosted flake in these two versions, a strawberry frosted flake and a peach frosted flake, and I worked on those. Helped do optimization work on honeycomb and quite a few other things while I was there. And then also while I was there, this is up in Battle Creek, Michigan, Kraft bought Nabisco and rolled some of the research up to Battle Creek that made sense. So this is another breakfast item for the most part, cream of wheat. So I was in charge of all the cream of wheat and cream of rice research for a couple of years. And you wonder, what in the world can you do? Well, you can actually do quite a few things with that. So it was interesting to me because I had to learn a lot about dry blending, which I hadn't done before. And then also we moved production from one state to another, and actually one of them to a different country. So it was a lot of work, and it was a lot of fun. I transferred with Kraft down to the Nabisco main research site in New Jersey, and that's where they do all the research on Oreos and Triscuits and cheese nips and a lot of other things and lifesavers that you recognize. I worked on Planters nuts there, and I worked on process automation and optimization. And I actually really enjoyed that. Figuring out how to make the perfect roasted cashew or nut of whatever type all the time, 24 hours a day, and make sure that it was exactly what the consumers wanted. One problem with this job was it required a 140-mile daily commute because it's very expensive to live in New Jersey. So we actually lived in Pennsylvania. I got tired of that after about 2.5 years. Kellogg's called, and I knew where they were. It was in Battle Creek where I was for post, so I knew I'd be going back to a 10-minute commute, and jumped at that, and was able to work on quite a few things I hadn't before. Crackers and cookies of different types. I developed this one, the reduced fat white cheddar Cheez-It, Scooby-Doo Ale fudge cookies, Halloween Rainbow Chips Deluxe, Bug Bites, and then some club crackers, and I helped with a lot of other stuff. These are just the ones that I pretty much led. So, and then I switched divisions at Kellogg's to the international division, and I supported cereal work overseas. So I supported in South Africa, South Korea, Japan, and India, and I went to all of those places for work of various types. Spent most of a December in South Africa 1 year. Was scheduled to go to India, but I quit actually before then to take this job, which was with Multimeal, and they changed their name to Mom Brands and then to Post Consumer Brands. So I was back to Post, which was kind of weird, but it actually turned out really well. And there I got to do what ended up being pretty much my favorite kind of work, which was process optimization and optimizing making sure that a product was the best that it possibly could be. And before I had to travel to do that. Now, with this job, I was located at the plant all the time, so I didn't have to travel away from home. I quite enjoyed that. Okay, so after about 10 years on that job, though, I decided I wanted to make a little bit of a change, and I wanted to do something different and introduce more people to food science. I didn't find out about it until I was a junior in college, and wished I had found out about it much earlier than that. And plus, becoming more and more interested and excited about the whole homeschool environment, thought I could combine both of those. And so created the brand Edible Knowledge. That's when we registered with our company, Beakers Bricks, and started creating these workbooks. So I was at the conference 2 years ago in 2018, the one in Virginia, and had my first editions there. And based on all of the feedback that I received from consumers, from some of the customers of those books, they really enjoyed them, had some great suggestions and things to do differently. So I actually spent about a year redoing those into the second editions, and that's what these are. And so I'm going to step out and show you what they are. Maybe, if I can. There we go. Whoops. Let's see. So Jen, you tell me if you can see this or not. Well, share this one. Is that good, Jen?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Okay. So I'll explain just real quickly how the books are organized, and just by kind of scrolling through some of them. This is the table of contents of the first one, which is an overview. That one has chapters on the basics of what food science is, kind of what I just went over, but in more detail. A science primer. If your student doesn't have a science background, I have a short chapter that gives them enough that should get them through the books. What food processing is, and then a chapter on proximate analysis, which basically is breaking down what's in your food using the food label that's on our products today. And after that, and there's assignments and things that go along with each of those chapters. After that, I get into the science itself. So there's chapters on water, carbohydrates, protein, and fats, which are the four main components of food. Those four things make it up entirely, except for if you burned it all the way away, you'd be left with ash, and that's the fifth component, and that's really not very interesting, so we don't talk about that much. And each of the chapters, I present food science principles in each principle is presented in fairly good depth. But this is an overview workbook just to give people a taste, no pun intended, right, of food science. And then those principles are reinforced at the end of each chapter by experiments that you do in the kitchen. And I'll show you, and that goes for each one. I'll show you some examples here. So I'm just scrolling through some of the first. Get down to one of the science chapters. Here we go. Okay, so here's a chapter on water. And the principles are described, the nature of the water molecule, water activity, and a lot of other things. I'm not going to go through them all here. And the way I have text boxes throughout the workbooks that define some new terminology if it's not defined in the text itself. And let me back up one. These first two workbooks, I have 4 books out right now. There's 3 of them that are designed for ages 10 and up, with the sweet spot being kind of the junior high into high school range. I do get fairly deep into the concepts. When I was researching what to do for this coursework, one of the things that I found lacking in some degree in the homeschool material that was available is it seemed like a lot of it was a mile wide and an inch deep. Mine kind of goes the opposite. It's much narrower and it goes fairly deep, and that's why the age recommendations for the workbooks. I do have one for those who are on the line for that just came out. I got my first shipment a week ago. It was actually last Saturday. It's called Food Science for Kids, and I'll show that one in a minute. It's for children as young as 6, and it's arranged a little differently as a result. Okay, so back to how these ones are organized. I have these text boxes, and then I also have video links, these video boxes throughout each chapter, where I've gone onto the internet and found videos that help and support what I'm presenting to help further understanding. And those are throughout each one. At the end of the chapter, then there's these experiments. Let's make a mess, right? Sorry about that. But you can't be in the kitchen without making a little bit of a mess. The items needed are at the beginning of each experiment, along with a little bit of an explanation of what's going to happen. And then you just do the experiment. There's places to write down if you choose to write in the book, where I've asked you to make your observations. Also tables that you can fill out depending on what it is and what's going on. And then at the end of the experiment, there's a discussion of what actually happened, what the food science principles are, or reinforcing the explanation of the food science principles that happened in that experiment. So that's an example of one. Here's another one, what you need, and you go through it, and then here's the discussion at the end. And that's the way those are all organized. And then at the end of each chapter, the very end, there's a what do you think section. And in these ones, I have a journaling idea for those who do journaling. I know those are hard to, sometimes it's hard to come up with an idea of what to journal on. So I give some ideas here. It makes some fairly creative thinking. And then the questions themselves are quite different than what you'd find in most texts. They're not ones where you can just go back and read the highlighted stuff in the text and this write it down. These ones kind of take you to a next level. You have to think beyond a little bit what you've learned and apply it. So it's some creative work and some thoughtful work. I think people, they have a lot of fun with these. So here's another one, chapter on carbohydrates. But the whole book is organized this way. Sorry, I'm just going to scroll through real quickly here. You can kind of see. And then at the very end, there is a chapter in this overview book on the education that's required to be a food scientist. For those who are interested, it's just a bonus section. And then there's also a glossary of all the terms in the book. So that's the first one. And the second book is organized the same way. This is water. But while there's a chapter on water in the first one, this entire workbook is on water. And there isn't any of the introductory stuff on what food science is or anything like that. So you want to do the first one first, an overview, and then you can do any of the other ones. And water is the first one. Carbohydrates will be out probably February of next year. And then there'll be two others, protein and fats, following after that. Should have them all done within the next 3 years or so. They take a bit of work to complete. But and you might wonder why do you need a whole workbook on water? And believe me, it's just scratching the surface. But this is all stuff, and this is why I say that parents will love it along with their kids. Some of you may be familiar with Alton Brown. He was on the Food Network and had a popular show that described stuff in the kitchen, and he actually did get into a little bit of food science. So my books are kind of like Alton Brown on steroids, if you want to think of it that way. And for those who know who he is. This gets pretty deep into stuff that you would see every day in the kitchen. You've seen it happening. You may not have wondered about it. You may have wondered about it, and this explains what's going on. So it can actually help you become a better cook, because then you understand what's happening and what may have gone wrong, so you can do it better next time. And again, this is organized the same way. It's just none of the introductory chapters. It's straight into the science with the text boxes and the video boxes. The first book, there's a whole lot of assignments that aren't experiment related associated with the first chapters, but then there's 9 experiments in it. This one has 18 experiments because there's it doesn't get into any of the introductory stuff. So that's those first 2. And the next one is, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Can you see that slide, or did I jump off?
It looks, I think it's the same book. We're still looking at water.
Oh, okay. So you're still seeing my other tab. All right, that's okay. I'll show, rather than jump back and forth to show you the cover, I'll show that at the tail end here. So I mentioned the first 2 are for ages 10 and up, with the sweet spot being junior high into high school. Had a lot of call at conventions I attended for one geared for younger students. So I didn't really know how to do that. I spent a lot of time researching that and working with different folks. My editor helped a lot in creating this book that I'm really excited about. Like, it just came out, got my first shipment last week. And this one is organized a little differently. It's basically 15 experiments. Well, there's a 2-page thing on what's food made of. And then you get straight into the experiments, and I call them messes. Sorry, again, mess number 1. So soft and fresh to stale and old bread plus eggman attack is what this one's called. And it explores food science principles, but in a much more not as in-depth. And the principles aren't presented in a chapter form first. You jump into the experiment, and there's some explanations as you go along, written, so that students as young as 6 might not be able to read it themselves. I don't know. That depends on the student, of course. But if somebody reads it to them, they should be able to understand what's going on. That's the level that we tried to write it to. And then at the end, we have the edible knowledge. So again, it's an explanation again of what happened. And there's some videos. Some of the videos now I'm making myself, and I'm going to be doing more of that. This one's on my Edible Knowledge YouTube channel, and then I have links in here also to elsewhere. I'm trying to find the one. I have another YouTube channel, and there's actually nope, that's in the next book, the thing I'm thinking of. So this one, again, this book is organized. It's all experiments. You jump right in and you do it, and they should be fun. Some of them definitely require supervision. I have a little flame here and a warning sign indicating that there's heat involved. Like this one is boiling. You boil eggs as part of it. It's some diagrams and illustrations that explain the science behind it, and again, the explanation at the end. So I think I'm excited about this. I think kids are going to have a lot of fun. It's new enough. I've sold quite a few of them already, but it's new enough to where I don't have a lot of feedback yet. So, okay, so that's the first three, food science. So the bricks, and is the fourth one. This is an introduction to physics and engineering. And for this one, I use Legos as part of the experiment. So it's organized the same way. And at the front of the book, there's a detailed list of all the Lego bricks that you would need. And most people have some Legos at home, or Lego bricks, I should say. And for the ones that you're missing, I have outlined in here exactly where you can get them. There's two sites that are actually Lego sites themselves, Pick a Brick and Bricks and Pieces. And I have the websites where you can go to, although I did just discover like 3 days ago that Bricks and Pieces, they're down right now because of this COVID-19. However they have their business organized, it wasn't amenable to functioning in the current environment. So if you're missing these pieces, you might have to go elsewhere on the web like Bricklink to find them. I do have about 16 of the full sets available on my website, where I have the book and the parts and pieces that you need for this book. And I also have a kit that I will continue to have all the time, and that's these three other non-Lego parts that you need in order to do the book. And that's just real cheap. It's easier for me just to put it together, I think, than for most people to go and pick it up. So organized the same way. Physics, engineering principles are described. This one's also for the 10 and up, with the sweet spot being junior high into high school age range. And then at the end, experiments with there's 16 different models that I've developed that you build and then test and work with to understand the principles that were taught in the chapters. An awful lot of it is simple machines. An awful lot of physics can be taught that way. So for example, here's a chapter on all the different kinds of levers, and then you build them all. So first, second, and third class levers, and you do some assignments with them to understand what's going on. And then wedges, inclined planes. This is a parbuckle. This was a challenging one to figure out how to build, but it works. It's where you need that wood dowel and the string. And wheels and axles and pulleys. And then building some of these sets with different numbers of pulleys, and then working with them to help understand mechanical leverage as it applies to wheels and pulleys, or wheels and axles. Transfer of energy, so gears, hydraulics. Yeah, people are really liking this one. This one's also new. It came out in December, but I'm already getting quite a bit of feedback on it. People like it. So, okay. So let me jump out real quickly. And I think I have to share a different screen. Share screen. Which one is it? This one. Okay. So this is, I just have my website up, and one other thing that I'll mention that we have over the last few weeks, given our current environment with this COVID-19, trying to make my material more accessible to folks, and even for folks who might be concerned about receiving a shipment, because I can definitely ship still. So converting some of the material into digital downloads. So I have a little more than half of the Introduction to Food Science for Kids. On here I can show you the cover now. This is the, well, the cover is this yellow cover here. But I have a little more than half of the experiments available as individual experiments that you can purchase. And they're also, if you go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, you'll get a free one of those that you can download and do right away. I also have the full book up there already as a digital download. Where's that one? See, there's some of the experiment. Here it is. It's right here. And then I have combos of different kinds that you can get that save you money. I don't really discount my stuff anymore, but I do offer. I'll occasionally have promotions where I'll offer free shipping and something that I'll give along with it. And I'm doing that actually now, but I'll share that here in just a minute. But I do have bundles that do save you some money, or if you buy multiple things together, like the first 2 books or the first 3 or the first 4, or have the ultimate bundle, right? That's everything pretty much that I have to offer right now. The 3 food science books, the introductory, the physics book with the Lego parts. And those are at a pretty good discount, just buying them all together. And then this is the digital and the print version of the introductory food science book for kids, the one that just came out. I'm working on getting the other things into digital format. I have to do quite a bit of rearranging in order to make it work if you want to print it and not blow up your printer. So that takes a little bit of effort, and but I'm getting them up as fast as I can. So there's the website. Let me get back. I'll stop sharing this one and go back to this one. Okay, so there's the cover for the other one for the kids. And then this is the Introduction to Physics and Engineering with using Lego bricks as the medium for reinforcing in the experimentation. And lastly, I'll mention right now through May 15th, use this code virus free, right? Got to get the virus in there somehow to get free shipping with no minimum order. And then on orders of $35 or more, you get a free kitchen cheat sheet refrigerator magnet that I developed. It's about a little over 4-inch by almost 6-inch magnet that you stick on your fridge, and it has information on properly storing your food from a temperature standpoint, and then internal cook temperatures for meats, and conversions for a lot of the common measurements like teaspoons to tablespoons, cups to pints, and that sort of thing. When I've given those away at conventions, people are excited about that. So I figured out a way to do that on my website. And I already mentioned, if you sign up for my newsletter, you get a free experiment from the For Kids book. And I'm also working on a podcast, which I should have my first one out in probably about a month. I'm hoping right at the beginning of May, so you can watch for that. And that's really all that I had to share as part of the presentation. I don't know if there are folks on who might have any questions.
Oops, hold on. Okay, just trying to get back on. All right, I don't know. Are there any questions? Let's see. We do have quite a few people on. I know I had one question, Dale. Since you have the YouTube links in your books, I know some of them you said you're working on your own channel now, but what were to happen? Do you have like a place to go for updates in case one of those links is no longer available?
I have been trying to monitor that, and sometimes they do go stale. Most of the ones that I've selected, well, I don't know of any of them that have so far. That's partly why I want to get into mine and make my own. because then those won't. I will mention, since you asked about that, I was going to mention before, sometimes people have had trouble like copying the link out and typing it in, you know, if they've had the physical book. So I can actually show this. If I can get back to my website, here we go. If you go to the Beakers and Bricks tab, here we go. And you go down to each book. So here's the introduction to food science. I have on there, this is the sample table of contents. Well, it's the table of contents from the book. This is a sample chapter, so you can take a little longer look at it if you want. And then these are all the video links, and they're
Oh,
clickable.
perfect. Oh, that's great.
So you can download this. You just click on it and download it. And all the links are there, so you can and they're organized. It indicates which chapter they're in, which page number, and you can click on them. And as people, I'll actually, if I've heard about something, it might be from one of my customers. Well, they'll indicate they had an issue with something. And this actually was an idea of one of my customers to do this. And she actually sent me the whole page of stuff. And then I did it on my own for the second one. But as I become aware of things like that, please let me know. And I'll update this. I'll find something else, or at least indicate that, hey, it's not working, you know, on the website. So
right. Yeah, that's perfect.
yeah.
And there was so one comment someone did just say, I'm super excited about this. Thank you so much for making it and sharing it.
Oh, good.
So yeah, I know I'm excited too. Actually, my son is interested in being an engineer, and so the Lego one is right up his alley. So, and I didn't realize that you had, because you didn't have that when I met you a couple of years ago. So yeah, I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah, they're kind of two different things, food science and Legos, but I had to figure out how to work Legos in there because I love them. I'm 54. I still buy them for myself. I was playing with them last night, so.
Nice. Yeah, our house is a big Lego house too. So,
I'll mention real quickly if I can.
Sure.
I forgot to mention this, and I was going to. For the first two books, I have also on my website a proposed schedule. Some people were buying these to do something fun over the summer, some for their science curriculum for a semester or what have you. But I have proposed schedules, one a 16-week and one an 8-week, based on my knowledge of, you know, some of the experiments that you do are not like you go and you do this for an hour or two and you're done. So you do it for an hour and two, and then you let it sit for a week, and then you come back to it. And then some of them are even longer than that, and you come back to them at various times. So these are in here, and it lays out just a proposed idea of how it could be done.
Oh, perfect.
And I also have links. Most of the ingredients that you need are common. I tried really hard to do that to make it easier on parents. It's kind of impossible to get away from a little bit. You do need a decent temperature probe, a thermometer, with a pan clip for this first workbook. And I have a link to the one that I actually used and have pictured in the book from Amazon. They're pretty cheap. It's like $15. And that one actually has a timer associated with it. And I use that timer actually all the time. So for other things, for water, that's down here. It's the same thing. You have all those same sample chapter, table of contents, the links for the videos, and then the proposed schedules. And then for that one, you do need a thermometer that measures below zero, or below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, I should say, below freezing, for one of the experiments. And then I use these pipettes. They're cheap for a bunch of them, and you can use them for lots of stuff, not just this. So just trying to make it easy on folks. I don't have my links sheet up yet for physics, but I do have the parts list. So if you want to look at that, just click on it. It has all the parts that you need, so you can do an inventory of what you have. I have some of the full kits available. I only have, I think, 16 of those left.
Now for these, is the color, I noticed it says the color. Is it very important that the color be, okay.
No, and in fact, that's a good point, actually, because in fact, even in the kits that I have available, they're not all the color that you see in the pictures.
Okay.
So that doesn't matter at all. And actually, this might be interesting to people. The design number for Legos, if you don't know, I actually didn't know until I did this. the design number indicates what it is. Like, for example, this 3700 is a two-stud brick with a hole in the middle. You know, this particular brick, that's what that design number is. This 3700021 specifies a red one of those.
Okay.
This 3700023 is a blue one of those. So if you want it to look exactly like the pictures, then you get the item number. But it really doesn't matter. I mean, they're
Okay.
all interchangeable. So you can have pink ones, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
So
Good to know. All right. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions, but thanks so much, Dale, for
sure.
taking the time to talk to us. This does look amazing. Now, I'm a little hesitant. I don't like messes in my kitchen, but I might buy the kids' book and have my husband do it because he has a lot more patience than me.
Well, I did put in at the end of every experiment in the kids' book, I said, okay, now let's clean up the mess.
Oh, well, good, good, good. I like that. I like that. Sold.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Sure.
And hope to see you in the future, hopefully in person at a conference.
Yep, will do. Yep.
All right. Thanks, Dale.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.